Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is another Zine Tour video. For those of you who are new here, my name is Charlotte Rose and I'm an artist and illustrator based in the UK. So today's video is about my zine Moonrock, which is a silent comic I made while I was in uni. I also have a couple of handmade books that I made in a bookbinding workshop at uni that I'll go through as well. So at the time of making this zine, I was really into the psychology of sleep and dreaming and how the brain works and how emotional states and drugs and things like that can affect how you sleep and how you dream and all that kind of thing. I was just an area of science and medicine that I was particularly interested in at the time. I kind of go through phases where I do loads of research into a different area. So yeah, at the time it was sleeping and dreaming, the psychology around it and the effects of other things on that. I got this book called Morpheus or The Future of Sleep by D.F. Fraser Harris. This is a great book and apparently a bit of a collectible, which I just picked up for like £2 in an antique shop in Brighton. But it's a great book and it's really interesting and it's really beautifully written. So this book talks about sleep and sleeplessness, the hygiene of sleep. It talks about dreaming. It's just, yeah, it's great. And it was written in, I forget when it was written, 1928. So this is a first edition. This was written in 1928. Yeah, it's a great book and I used it a lot as inspiration at the time. I used a lot of quotes from it in some of my illustrations and things. So yeah, this book. I also, as I just mentioned, was really interested in the effects of drugs on sleep and the brain. So I was looking at all the LSD experiments done in the 50s and 60s. There's a really quite a famous video of a controlled LSD experiment on a sort of 50s housewife. And it's a great video. I'll put a couple of screenshots up. It's quite interesting and quite eye-opening. So yeah, I was looking at all that kind of stuff at the time as well. As a result of that, I was looking at a lot of sort of trippy psychedelic art, particularly collage at the time. I think this came from me being an art student and just experimenting with different mediums. So I started doing collage. I'll show you a couple of videos of my sketchbooks from around that kind of time. There's a lot of collage in it. There's a lot of things stuck on to the paper, like masking tape and photos that I've printed out and stuck on, and magazines, stuff like that. So there's a lot of that. So I was really into sort of psychedelic collage and psychedelic art in general. I'll put a couple of examples up. So because I was really into textural art at the time, I really liked it when you could see brush strokes and pencil marks in an image, and when you could see paper and stuff like that had been cut out and stuck on, and tape and all that kind of stuff like I attempted in my sketchbooks. So I was looking at Eric Carle a lot at the time, who is very different to what I do. You know, he does kids books like The Very Hungry Caterpillar and The Very Busy Spider and The Mixed Up Chameleon. Great books, but obviously nothing like what I do. So I was looking at him a lot, and I was also looking at Clive Hicks Jenkins at the time as well, who makes really beautiful artwork, and you can really see the texture of the material he was using, like charcoal and pencil and things like that. And I really like that you can see the process in the brush strokes or the pencil marks or whatever. So that's something that I very much took into whilst making this scene. So really this scene is a combination of me being interested in sleeping and dreaming and the effects of psychedelic drugs on the brain, and this sort of textural art and illustration. So I think this silent comic that I've made is sort of a mashup of all of those things. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and this is it. So here it is. This is the Moonrock. This is the front cover, obviously, and the back. So as you can see, there's a lot of texture already just on the front and back cover. My end pages weren't as illustrative as they usually are. This was just sort of scribbles. I wanted it to look like a kind of black hole kind of thing. The scribbled background on the title page is something I made, and I used it over and over again, changing like the colorways and everything, so it's kind of, it pops up in quite a few of my drawings. So the zine starts with a character stumbling across a massive rock and getting a bit confused, wondering what it is. I've put a little question mark above his head in this panel here. I don't know if you can see that or not. So yeah, he's kind of, what the hell is this thing? So he gives it a knock, an eye opens, and the rock sees him and opens his mouth, which is the door. He looks inside and is shocked to what he can see. So when you see inside, it's like a big psychedelic dreamscape kind of thing. I tried drawing like exclamation marks and question marks just on the character to kind of like, because I didn't have a face to do, so that was kind of my way of expressing how he was feeling. So he starts wandering through this psychedelic dreamscape. It's all very funky, very kind of like smooth. He sees his hand on the wall and it comes out, so he jumps on it and he goes for a bit of a magic carpet ride around this dreamscape. It starts off super fun and the background's all flowy and colourful. So something I wanted to do with this scene, or the panels in the zine, was I wanted the background to reflect the kind of feeling. So it started off like all bright and colourful, and then in these pages the colours started changing and the background's gone all scribbly here, where he's getting curious because he sees this hole in the ground. This hand that's just taken him round has now kicked him in there. So he falls down into this hole and he's in this room and he's like, where the hell am I? He sees a door, he opens it, thinking he'd lead to the outside of the rock, but it's actually the outside of his brain. So he's sort of trying to escape it because his brain's getting all chaotic and stressful, and that's what the scribbly background in this one's for. So he jumps down to escape it, so there's a little diving sequence here, and he lands into his heart, and he safely falls asleep. So this was supposed to be a kind of, sometimes we need to escape our own heads. That's where I was going. So the idea that the heart is a warm place full of love and the brain can be a bit chaotic and intense and we need to escape it sometimes. So now I've got these cute little handmade books that I made in a bookbinding class at uni. I stuck the little moon head on the front just so that it had some sort of cover. I really like this one. This one's my favourite. So you open it up and you can kind of either read it like page to page like you would a regular book almost, but it's almost like, I don't know, I see it almost as like a little animation. Maybe it's just the nature of it being a silent comic, but I think it kind of reminds me of like a vintage cartoon a little bit. And the other way of reading it is by literally opening it up and pulling out the whole thing into one big long strip like this, and you can just move it across, and this makes it look even more like a little cartoon actually. I really struggled here to put it away neatly on camera. The last one I have is this little square one, so I tied it up with ribbon. I think it's actually bias binding because I think it's just what I happen to have in my bag at the time. But yeah, this is, I think it's called a star book, where you open it up and you can kind of make the covers touch and it creates this kind of star. So there wasn't room in this one to do the whole book, so I just chose like a small sequence of where he's coming out of his brain. It was just an experiment and it was really fun. I really like it, but I prefer for this comic, the other type of book worked a lot better. I'd even argue that the other type of handmade book worked better than the zine itself. Seeing each frame individually like that, on like one per page, I just really liked that. So yeah, that's Moonrock. I hope you liked it. There'll be a link in the description if you want to buy it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.